Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a truly mind-bending hypothesis. We are going to impartially decode the idea that Leonardo da Vinci's greatest masterpiece, The Last Supper, is actually an intricate, hidden astrological map of the stars. It's an incredibly bold claim, right? But we're going to look closely at the actual visual evidence that researchers and astrological historians are pointing to within the painting itself.
For over 500 years, traditional art history has looked at this as a purely biblical scene. You know, the poignant moment where Jesus reveals that one of his own disciples is going to betray him. But what if there's more to it? Proponents of a fascinating field called astrotheology suggest that Da Vinci, who we all know was an absolute polymath and innovator, actually embedded an empirical cosmic code right in front of our eyes. They argue he cleverly masked this ancient understanding of the zodiac behind a universally accepted religious narrative.
To really grasp why Leonardo might pull off a stunt like this, we have to look at his own words and his philosophy. He was a deeply empirical thinker. He famously believed that wisdom is the daughter of experience. Researchers point out that Da Vinci was heavily influenced by the Hermetic principle of as above, so below, which fundamentally links earthly events to the orderly celestial movements we see in the night sky. For Da Vinci, ultimate truth was found in observing nature. And honestly, what is a grander observation of nature than mapping the movement of the stars?
The solar center.
Okay, let's start our investigation right at the anchor of the entire composition, Jesus. Astrological historians are quick to point out how Da Vinci masterfully used perspective to make Jesus the central light source. In fact, literally all the lines of perspective in the entire room converge exactly at Jesus' right temple. In the astrotheology hypothesis, Jesus represents the physical sun right in the center of the solar system. He sits there, perfectly calm in the middle, radiating light and balancing the forces of day and night, entirely surrounded by 12 figures that these researchers claim map perfectly to the 12 zodiac constellations.
Seasons and star maps.
Now, Da Vinci was an absolute mathematical genius. And if you look closely at the deliberate arrangement of the table, it actually mirrors our calendar. Notice how the 12 apostles are distinctly grouped into 4 sets of 3. While traditionally we're taught that this creates dramatic tension in the painting, researchers hypothesize that these 4 groups are actually meant to perfectly represent the 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And the 3 individuals within each of those groups, well, they represent the 3 months, or the 3 zodiac constellations that make up each respective season.
Decoding the zodiac apostles.
Let's scan across the table from right to left, almost like we're mapping the night sky. We start off with Simon. In medical astrology and physiognomy, which are subjects we know Da Vinci studied extensively, Aries is the first sign, and it rules the head. Proponents note that Simon sits right at the head of the table. His prominent forehead is heavily emphasized, and his assertively placed hands actually mirror the shape of the stars in the Aries constellation. Just a little to the left in that exact same spring group, we find Thaddeus. Taurus rules the neck and shoulders, and here Thaddeus is shown physically touching his thick neck. Right next to him is Matthew, whose arms are stretched out completely parallel to one another. This parallel line brilliantly illustrates the duality of the Gemini twins, which perfectly caps off the 3 signs of spring. Moving right along into the summer group, researchers point out a really bizarre detail. There's an apostle holding a knife, but he's holding it awkwardly backward. Why on earth would Leonardo paint it like that? Well, according to the hypothesis, this backward, curved positioning is meant to look exactly like the pinching claw of a crab, which is, of course, the universal symbol for Cancer. Right next to that crab-like gesture, we have Leo, the absolute king of the zodiac. When the sun is in Leo, we're talking peak heat, the dog days of summer. Notice how James the Greater is the only apostle boldly and dominantly leaning his elbow right onto the table. He displays this incredibly confident, king-like energy that completely fits the astrological profile of the lion. Physiognomy and hidden gestures. Now, right as we reach the figure sitting immediately to Jesus' right, we hit what is arguably the most debated point in the entire painting. Traditionally, this is John the Apostle, the youngest male disciple. However, alternative theorists note that the figure lacks an Adam's apple, possesses very delicate, feminine features, and visually forms a distinct V shape with Jesus. While some of the more speculative theories out there claim this is Mary Magdalene, astrotheologists argue that this figure simply represents Virgo the Virgin. She is the only feminine sign of the zodiac and perfectly completes the harvest season of summer. Moving past the central solar figure of Jesus, we cross the equinox and head right into autumn. Here we see an apostle spreading his arms wide open, visually creating a perfectly balanced horizontal line.
Astrologers argue this is a very direct, deliberate representation of the balancing scales of Libra, literally marking the time of year when day and night are in equal measure.
Next up is the intense, famously secretive energy of Scorpio, and researchers say this is embodied perfectly by Peter. He's leaning in, but crucially he has a hidden hand holding a dagger behind his back. Star mappers highlight that the position of this hidden dagger points precisely to where the scorpion sting sits in the actual night sky constellation of Scorpio. It's a highly secretive, hidden gesture that perfectly fits a sign known for its concealed depth.
Then we have Judas. He's clutching that infamous bag of silver, but investigators claim his posture is doing something else entirely. It perfectly mirrors the teapot shape of the Sagittarius constellation. As we cross over into the winter signs, Andrew is shown holding both his hands up, palms facing outward. This striking pose forms the distinct triangular shape associated with the constellation of Capricorn.
Finally, bringing the winter cycle to a close on the far left side, we see James the Lesser. His hand is positioned exactly as if he's holding and pouring from an invisible water pitcher, which is the absolute hallmark of Aquarius. And at the very end of the table is Bartholomew. He is displaying his hands parted in a specific V shape. This, researchers say, represents the two distinct swimming fish of Pisces, cleanly bringing the cosmic calendar to a close.
Unveiling the Cosmic Code.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? According to these researchers, the painting is basically a grand cosmic clock, literally hiding in plain sight. Compiling the evidence, this hypothesis suggests Da Vinci purposefully layered incredibly complex ancient systems of astrology, physiology, and sacred geometry into one continuous narrative. But you might be wondering why hide it at all? Well, promoting these non-biblical Hermetic subjects was considered outright heresy back then. It would have put Da Vinci in immense danger from the authorities of his time. By mapping the 12 apostles to the 12 constellations and Jesus to the sun, Da Vinci managed to express this massive worldview without ever openly defying his wealthy patrons or the church.
But it goes even deeper. Astrotheologists connect Jesus himself directly to the sign of Pisces. They note that the symbol of early Christianity was the fish, and that chronologically the birth of the Jesus figure coincided precisely with the astronomical dawn of the age of Pisces, which is a massive 2,000-year cycle dictated by the slow, natural shift known as the precession of the equinoxes.
Whether you see this masterpiece purely as a deeply emotional biblical moment or as a masterfully encoded map of the heavens, it completely shifts how you look at art, doesn't it? It leaves us with a profound mystery to ponder. As we look up at the stars today and slowly transition into the age of Aquarius, how many of our most sacred, ancient historical artifacts are actually maps of the sky, just waiting for us to decode them? Thank you for exploring this totally fascinating perspective with me today. In this explainer, keep asking questions and always keep looking closely.